This is Mac OS Ken.
Judge Rogers does not sound happy. Preparations continue for WWDC, and clarification on iPad Air's missing GPU core. It is Tuesday, the 4th of June, 2024. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Pen Chalet, selling exquisite fountain pens for over 10 years with special offers for Mac OS Ken listeners at penchalet.com/macosken. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macosken. One doesn't like to prejudge a judgment, but it sounds like Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers is less than happy with Apple. Bless the folks at 9 to 5 Mac for this amazingly succinct story so far. Epic Games introduced its own in-app payment system on iPhone. This bypassed the App Store and denied Apple its 30% commission. This was a blatant breach of the App Store terms and conditions. Apple responded by throwing the company off the App Store. The two companies went to court. The court told Epic that Apple did not operate a monopoly. The court told Apple it must allow in-app sales outside the App Store. Both cases appealed to parts of the ruling they didn't like. The U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear either appeal. With that, Apple followed the letter of Judge Rogers' ruling, though perhaps not the spirit. Allowed by the judge to still charge a commission, Apple set one of 27% for big players playing with other payment systems besides Apple's own. Now 9 to 5 Mac says the judge has demanded to see all of Apple's internal documents related to its decision to charge 27% commission on all in-app purchases made outside of the App Store. If there is a concern, she says, then be overly broad. I don't want to judge, but I think the judge sounds less than pleased. Hey, here's a question. What the heck is going on with the App Store in the EU? Apple 3.0 ran part of a note Monday from Evercore analyst Amit Daryanani. According to that, EU App Store revenues were up 25% in the month of May versus up 22% in April, despite implementation of the Digital Markets Act in the European Union. The analyst says he and his team were expecting the growth rate to remain flat or decelerate further as compares got more challenging, so this adds to their conviction that services can continue to grow double digits. Flat would have made sense. It's not like everybody was going to start downloading apps from websites or shopping exclusively through third-party app stores. But 25% following 22% growth following Apple's Digital Markets Act compliance? It's early days. Some developers and buyers may find their way out of Apple's App Store ecosystem eventually, but what is with the stellar growth? Sadly, Daryanani doesn't speculate on that. He does indicate, though, that the 25% growth in the EU plus 10% App Store growth for China in May, up from April's 4% growth, have him thinking that Apple services overall should have no trouble meeting or beating consensus expectation for growth of 11%. Mr. Daryanani has an outperform rating on Apple shares. He has set Evercore's price target on the shares at $220. Preparations continue for next week's big developer due. I thought Apple had updated its developer app last week, though. That was apparently just updating some information in it. Mac Rumor says the app was officially updated on Monday. Lots of improvements tied to video presentation, which makes sense since WWDC is pretty much one big video presentation at this point. Now, I was surprised to find that I actually had the developer app on my iPhone. Then I remembered why. Stickers. There are 9 this year, including a classic Mac with the words 40 years under it, an Apple Park sticker, the word Apple in an alternating rainbow of colors, and a few others. available for iPhone, iPad, and the Mac. Apple's developer app is free. It is available now in the App Store. There will be no shortage of ways to watch next Monday's opening address, and Apple has fired up what is likely the biggest one. Another piece from Mac Rumors says the company has set the placeholder for the presentation on YouTube. You likely remember, but I'll remind you anyway. The WWDC Keynote is set to pop next Monday, the 10th of June at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. As always, it will happen at other times in other places. So yeah, on the M2 iPad Air, it's a 9-core GPU, not 10, but Apple says you will never miss that 10th core. I told you yesterday of a change that had been spotted on the tech specs for Apple's latest iPad Air here in the States. It showed the tablet shipping with a 9-core GPU, not the 10-core GPU that showed in the original press release on the US support doc, and the rest of the documentation about the device from the rest of Apple's sites. That left one to wonder which was wrong, 9 cores or 10. Clarification came Monday, starting with a report from iMore. Partway through the day, the site saw documentation changing on Apple sites in Australia, China, Japan, New Zealand, and the US. At least those places, they said. That was Apple starting with the corrections, it seems. Things were made more clear a short while later when 9to5Mac got a statement on the issue from the Cupertino company. Short and sweet, the statement said, "We are updating Apple.com to correct the core count for the M2 iPad Air. All performance claims for the M2 iPad Air are accurate and based on a 9-core GPU." The good news, Apple's claims about M2 iPad Air being 50% faster than the M1 model seem solid. Perhaps just to satisfy curiosity, though, 9to5Mac still wonders who got their wires crossed and how. A bit of a mystery update for one of Apple's iPads. Apple Insider says the Cupertino code monkeys have released an updated version of iPadOS 17.5.1 specifically for the 10th generation tablet. As for what it does, your guess is as good as anybody's outside of Apple Park. It is unclear exactly what Apple has changed in the build, according to the report. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Pen Chalet, selling exquisite fountain pens for over 10 years. I woke up to something fascinating yesterday. My special lady friend had inked and is now using a 100-year-old fountain pen. It was actually given to members of the press for a political convention in June of 1924. Thing writes like a dream. I have a glass nib fountain pen that is either from Germany pre-World War II or East Germany post-war, not sure which. I've also got a pen from Japan in the early 1950s. Her political pen did cost her a bit, but the two of mine I just told you about were practically free. None of them were expensive pens when they were made. Yet here they are, 70, 80, 100 years later, still doing what they were made to do. If you buy a good fountain pen, you're not just buying an elegant way to write today. Take care of it, and you are buying a pen for the ages. And Pen Chalet has a lot of great pens. Go to penchalet.com/macOSKen. Pick either the Pilot Metropolitan or the Lamy Safari starter box. Each comes with a great pen, a Rhodia tablet, specially selected ink, and pen flush to maintain your pen's performance. Those are all ready, they're waiting, and they are bundled at a discount at penchalet.com/macOSKen. Or if you want to think outside the starter boxes, you can use code MOK10 for 10% off other purchases. That's penchalet.com/macOSKen. And a big thanks to Pen Chalet for sponsoring today's show. Ken, no relation, wrote to me yesterday saying, "You made a slight error in Monday's podcast. Towson Town Center is not located in Virginia. It is in Towson, Maryland, just north of Baltimore." You know what stinks, other Ken? I totally know that. Kind of annoyed with myself. Thanks for the correction, and congratulations. You get this week's ham. I have friends at Ecamm who let me know about a new feature they're launching. I know what you're thinking. You have friends? Yes? Anyway, if you watch the first few episodes of the Mac Observer show, which is coming, by the way, the promo hit the feed yesterday, kind of excited. Anyway, if you watch the first few episodes on YouTube, you'll see the video quality jump around a bit. The first show we did was recorded a few months ago and is still a few weeks away from being published. The first show we're publishing, the one with Ben Bajarin, it's actually the most recent show we recorded. Way better than the first one or two in terms of AV quality. Part of that is because of my work on and increasing comfort with Ecamm, a live streaming and video production application for the Mac. They've got a new feature about which they want to let people know, and since you're people, they asked me to tell you about it. It is integration with Zoom. If you are an Ecamm user, you can bring Zoom guests into your production. On the Ecamm side, it should be good for adding Zoom comments and reactions into your broadcasts and recordings. On the Zoom side, the tools Ecamm offers should help raise the quality of your Zoom meetings, Zoom webinars, and Zoom events. We poked around a few platforms before landing on Ecamm. In fact, we were really close to going with Zoom, so honestly, the two of them together seems to make sense. This is not a paid announcement. They have been helpful to me starting or restarting the Mac Observer show, and I am happy to be helpful in return. You can find more info at Ecamm, that's 2 M's, Ecamm, ecamm.com/Zoom. So here's a heck of a thing. Spotify is raising the prices of its premium tiers in the US. 9 to 5 Mac says the ad-supported tier is still out there, but the piece says the price of Spotify's premium tier is now more expensive than Apple Music. Like, more expensive if you go to Spotify's site and pay for it there. Breaking it on down, 9 to 5 Mac says Spotify Premium Individual is now priced at $11.99 per month compared to $10.99 for Apple Music. The family plan price is also up and now costs $19.99 compared to $16.99 for Apple Music Family. Spotify Premium Duo, which allows for streaming by 2 people in the same household, is now $16.99, the same price as what Apple Music charges for Family, which supports up to 6 family members. Now, I gotta say, I'm confused. I thought it was Apple's horribly no-good, unfair commissions that made Spotify in the App Store cost more than Apple Music. Are we saying that wasn't it? In an email to affected users, Spotify says it's increasing the price of the premium plan so it can continue to invest in and innovate on its product offerings and features. The piece points out that Spotify has expanded into podcasts and audiobooks content in recent years. Premium plans include podcasts that are exclusive to Spotify and 15 hours of audiobook listening per month. While Apple Music does not have those, Spotify doesn't have lossless audio or spatial audio. I pretend to be unable to believe the problem wasn't Apple's commission. And finally today, Apple TV Plus is ramping up the PR train for a new animated kids series. The Cupertino streamer issued a press release Monday announcing deets and a trailer for WondLa. Based on the New York Times best-selling book series, The Search for WondLa, the release says the show centers around Eva, a curious, enthusiastic, and spirited teenager being raised in the state-of-the-art underground bunker by a robot caretaker. On her 16th birthday, an attack on Eva's bunker forces her onto the Earth's surface, which is now inhabited by aliens and covered by otherworldly fauna, and there are no other humans to be found. Eva then leads a team of interesting individuals on a dangerous quest to find humans, her home, and her true destiny. Janine Mason gives voice to Eva. Terry Hatcher voices the robot caretaker. The press release refers to the show as an epic trilogy. The 7-episode first season of WondLa hits Apple TV Plus on Friday, the 28th of June, and as Eva, you can catch the trailer on YouTube. macOS Ken, brought to you by me, and sponsored by Pen Chalet, selling exquisite fountain pens for over 10 years with special offers for macOS Ken listeners at penchalet.com/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.